Okay, welcome. So today is our Move in Stillness meeting. I would say that it's nice to see you, but I don't see any of you because you all have your cameras turned off. But that's okay. I don't need to see you. So today I'm going to share with you what in my estimation is a very powerful technique that I don't know of anyone else sharing. So not to say that nobody else knows of it. Maybe somebody else does. Presumably in the history of humanity with billions of people, somebody else has discovered it. Probably many people, but I don't know of anybody else sharing it. So it's a somewhat unique technique, and it combines some elements of things that we've already um, looked at in previous meetings. So everybody who's here live, you've attended many of the meetings. People who watch it on YouTube, I would recommend that you have some familiarity with some of the other things that we've covered in this meeting and in others. So in particular, you're going to want to have some familiarity with the breath normalization, Buteyko style of reduced breathing. Also the Udiana Kriya, which we covered, I think, 2 weeks ago. So both of these have been covered recently in Move into Stillness for anybody who wants to familiarize yourself with those. You can look to previous meetings of recordings of Move into Stillness for those. And we're also going to be utilizing basic Thomas Hanna principles for somatics, which have also been covered in Move into Stillness meetings previously. And one more thing, which is to a lesser, well, I wouldn't say a lesser extent. Also, some familiarity with the Ujjayi Pranayama, which we've covered in the Bliss Techniques program, and that is now the one of those meetings is now available on YouTube publicly, so people can familiarize themselves with that. So that would be I'll try to link to those things in the description on YouTube, so people who want to find those can find them. But everybody who's here live, I think, has some familiarity with those things. So we'll get started momentarily. While I am introducing it, you can, if you're not already, lying down on the back, and if you're able to do so, then it would be great to do so. And so as usual, when lying down on the back, I recommend that you lie down on as firm of a surface as is comfortable for you. So it shouldn't be so cushiony or yielding that you're sinking into it unless that's necessary for you. And it probably shouldn't be like a concrete pad or a hardwood floor, because for most people that's going to be too firm. Some people may find that probably not the concrete pad, but maybe a hardwood floor would be okay for some. But for most people, some padding will be appropriate, and how much padding is going to depend on you. And it's important that you provide yourself with enough padding that it's adequately comfortable, because we're going to be lying on the back for a little while. And if it's like an endurance thing, then it won't give good results. So you shouldn't be like gritting your teeth and holding your breath in order to endure, because that's not a good setup for success. So hopefully that's clear. I mean, for everybody who's here live, you've heard me say these things so many times, you probably are rolling your eyes, but that's good because that means that it's work that I've successfully communicated some things. So now, how you position your legs is going to be up to you. Probably a good starting position for most people would be to have the feet flat on the floor, and near to the buttocks at a comfortable distance. So it shouldn't be strenuous. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be uncomfortable. And then a comfortable width apart. So usually hips width or sometimes a little bit wider. For most people is going to be comfortable. You want to allow the weight of the legs to sink toward the floor or toward the earth surface that you're on, so that you're not lifting up or making any unnecessary effort, which usually we are. So you just kind of want to check in and notice if there's any unnecessary strain or effort happening, and really let that energy and weight descend and sink into the surface that you're lying on. I will say, if it's for whatever reason you are unable to do it lying down, you whatever, you could do this from other positions, but lying on the back will usually is going to give the best results if you can do it. So if you're not able to do that, then you can choose a different position, like sitting up or reclining. But just know that if it's at all possible for you to lie on the back comfortably or reasonably comfortably, that will give you the best results. So if you find that having the knees bent in that way is uncomfortable, if you don't know how to relax into that position, if you find that you're straining because you don't know how to just keep the legs upright and they're kind of wobbling all around, all these things can happen. First of all, just see it's always a good idea, in my opinion, to really tune into your experience and see what it is that you can change or really usually release, that will make for a better experience, a more supported experience. So it's good, I think, to take a moment at least to explore that, see where you're maybe still making the unnecessary effort, how you're not allowing things to sink, how you maybe need to reposition things a little bit so that maybe they're too narrow or too far from the buttocks or who knows what. But you just see what you can do. And if all of that still results in a discomfort or whatever, then you want to change the position. So you could straighten the legs. For some people that will be fine, and for some people that will be slightly uncomfortable, or maybe not, maybe more than slightly uncomfortable. In which case you would want to support probably under the knees. You could put some cushions or pillows or something like that, or at least like a rolled up blanket, something under the knees, that will usually help to produce a more supported, nicer experience if you're experiencing discomfort having the legs extended. So you've got a lot of options. Hopefully that gives you enough options. If you need other options, then and you can let me know. So while we're here, you want to again really just tune in and find out how you can make this easier on yourself from the very beginning. Because if you're already straining or trying to bear it, then it's not a good setup for success. Now, what we're going to be doing is a combination of all the things that I mentioned previously. And it's, in my experience, it's very, very powerful technique, and also can be a lot to try and be aware of all at the same time. And so because it's so much to be aware of, sometimes that can lead to some tendency to strain. And so it's really important that you don't strain. And if you find that you are straining, which can sneak up on you, and it can also take the form of holding the breath too long, for example, then just ease up. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you have to try harder in order to get good results. It's really going to be the other way around. It's the more that you can relax into it, the more that you can be focused, yet and with intention, and yet as relaxed as possible. It's going to give you the best results. So, all of that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some guided instruction on the technique, and we're going to take it kind of easily, as much as possible, because, like I say, it's a fairly, it's not, I don't want to say it's difficult. It's just an intensive. It's intensive in terms of the amount to remain aware of. So we'll start just by noticing the breath, and you can have the eyes open or closed, whatever is comfortable for you. You can start with your hands placed wherever you would like. We'll, in a little bit, there will be some specific hand placements, but for now, whatever's comfortable for you. And you're just aware of the breath, and you're noticing how easy is the breath, how comfortable is the breath, how satisfying is the breath. So I would say that, in one sense at least, our goal is to be able to breathe in a way that is satisfying, pleasurable, uh, that seems in some sense effortless, and at the same time is also has a sense of completeness. So that's kind of the destination, but along the way we maybe have to experiment a little bit to get outside of the ruts that we otherwise get ourselves in. So we have habits that we're largely unconscious of. So this is what Hannah refers to as sensory motor amnesia. So it's an important reminder, because the idea that you have of what all those things would feel like, or what the experience would be like of all the things I just mentioned, ease and comfort and satisfaction and so forth. The idea that you have about that might be different than the reality of it. And sensory motor amnesia plays a very significant part in that discrepancy. So we have to be willing to move outside of our comfort zone, and at the same time to do so with awareness and in a way that does that helps us to develop the sensory motor awareness versus the amnesia. So it's a somewhat delicate thing that we just requires that we really apply ourselves to it, understanding that at first we don't know what we're doing, and it can be somewhat uncomfortable or awkward or whatever may be the case. So you're noticing the breath, and ideally you're breathing exclusively through the nose. So if you feel that that's not possible for you, then see what you can do. Just do your best to breathe exclusively through the nose, and maybe if that is still good, is a challenge for some people, then you can let me know that, and I can take that up in a future meeting, so that we can explore ways of helping ourselves to breathe exclusively through the nose, because it offers many benefits versus mouth breathing. So you're noticing that you're inhaling and you're exhaling, and you want to allow this rhythm of the inhalation and the exhalation to be smooth and continuous, which doesn't mean that you couldn't also allow for naturally occurring pauses or retentions between these two phases, but we don't want to introduce them intentionally. So we're just continuously aware of the inhalation followed by the exhalation, followed by the inhalation, and so forth. And allowing for this to be smooth and as pleasant as possible. Also, allow it to be as slow as possible. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit challenging, because as soon as we try to allow it to become slow, then we start usually tripping on ourselves, so to speak. So it's important that you don't try to slow it down, but rather you just allow for it to slow down. So it never should be forced, but you're allowing for it to slow down. So that's an intention. Now, we're going to do this technique with some phases of the Buteyko reduced breathing in between. So we'll start by the Buteyko breath normalization, just so we can all be in the familiar with it when we reintroduce it in between these stages of the other technique. So you're going to just simply allow for each inhalation and each exhalation to become gentler and slower and smoother. And don't try and force the breath to be large. Don't try to force it to be small, but do just be aware of the volume of the breath. And so don't inhale more than is necessary. So we're not trying to have the biggest breath possible during this phase. We're just trying to have an adequate inhalation. So you want to really be attentive and notice the moment at which it's adequate. And then you can slowly allow for the exhalation. Now, the exhalations we want to be completely relaxed, so that it's not forced. So oftentimes we're in the habit of a forced exhalation without really being aware of it. But here we want to allow for the abdomen to remain completely relaxed, so there's no forced exhalation. And if at any point it becomes uncomfortable because you start to experience excessive air hunger, then just let that be for a moment and return to your whatever would be a normal, comfortable way of breathing for you until you feel comfortable again. And then again, come back to this reduced or gentler style of breathing. And our goal is to achieve a very mild air hunger that's completely tolerable, and actually we start to experience as pleasant. And so that's a good sign, but sometimes, especially early on, we can cross over into air hunger that's a little bit more than mild, and it becomes uncomfortable and somewhat stressful, so we don't want that. So just really want to allow for deeper relaxation so that you can really feel into your somatic experience. You can start to notice where there have been these habits of spasms and gripping and tension, especially in the chest and the abdomen. So notice that. And today we're going to give particular attention to the abdomen. So you could even bring special attention there and just notice what you can let go of. So this breath normalization, as we've talked about previously, it helps to normalize the CO2 levels, which helps to shift the nervous system into a what we might call a more balanced state. And you should start to notice that you have more, first of all, that you're better able to relax, and second of all, that you're more aware of your somatic experience. So these kind of feed into one another and can form a virtuous cycle if you allow it, so that you just allow yourself to relax more and to feel more, and then to relax more and then to feel more. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'll introduce this technique. And again, I'm going to remind you, and I'll remind you many times, that it's really important that you this technique is going to require a little bit of effort on your part. But you want to strike the right balance, and you don't want to be excessive with it. And it can, because there's so much to be aware of, it can sometimes become excessive, and that's just part of the process. But if you notice that happening, then you want to ease up. Okay, so for this, you're gonna be combining the Ujjayi pranayama with some other things. So that means that you're going to be aware that you want the ribs to articulate so that the sternum lifts toward the chin. The chin's going to move toward the chest so that the back of the neck is lengthened. And this forms that Jalandhara bandha, which helps to prevent things from the pressure from building up in the head. So if you do notice pressure building up in the head at any point, it just means that you need to be aware of maintaining that Jalandhara bandha, or not straining so much. Okay, so you're wanting to maintain this the lift of the sternum throughout, without it being strenuous, or without it being no, you don't want to, it shouldn't be uncomfortable. So if it becomes uncomfortable, just relax a little bit more and see that you can really start to notice it with this bandha in an energetic way without so much strain. But we also do really physiologically want to increase the distance between the base of the sternum and the pubic bone, which is what this does. When the sternum lifts, the distance between the base of the sternum and the pubic bone increases. And here you're going to, as long as it's comfortable for you, at least, you're going to place your hands, the palms, on the either side of your abdomen. So you could have the elbows resting on the surface that you're on, and then you just place the palms on either side of the abdomen. So right palm on the right side of the abdomen, left palm on the left side of the abdomen, and you can just spread the fingers comfortably so that you can feel the abdomen as big of an area on the abdomen as possible, ideally from the lower ribs down to near the pubic bone, or as close as you can, with it being comfortable. And you want to allow, as you're inhaling and as you're exhaling, for the abdomen to remain soft. So the abdomen will move, but we don't want any tension in the abdomen. So a lot of the time we have a lot of tension in the abdomen, and here we're wanting to keep the abdomen very soft and yielding, because we don't need any tension there in order to breathe and be here in this posture. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to make the inhalations perhaps a little bit more active. So we're shifting from the Buteyko style breathing to a slightly more active inhalation, but only so much as you can maintain that relaxation of the abdomen. And so that means that the side ribs are going to move out to the sides and up, and the front of the chest will slightly expand outward. But the majority of the movement should be on the sides. And that's because the thoracic diaphragm is the primary respiratory muscle that you're using here. And that is when it contracts for the inhalation, it has, having attachments all around the base of the rib cage, it has to move the rib cage. And in this position, really the main way that the rib cage can move is for the side of the side ribs to move laterally and up. Now, it's not a big movement, so don't exaggerate it, but that you just want to be aware of that so that you can have that intention that that's how you have this experience. So already a lot to be aware of. So just make sure that you're able to relax and do your best to also make sure that you're relaxing in the face. Let the tongue relax in the lower jaw. Let the eyes remain looking downward as if you were peering interiorly into your chest or abdomen. Because the tendency can be, especially on the inhalation, for the eyes to roll up and the tongue presses against the roof of the mouth, and then we start arching the neck, and none of that is what we want. That just produces a lot of strain and pressure in places that we don't want. So it's important that everything can remain relaxed, and tongue should be resting in the lower jaw. And let the throat remain relaxed. And let all the muscles attaching into the clavicles, the collarbones and shoulders remain relaxed, because oftentimes also we have a tendency to strain there, like trying to lift the collarbones, and that's just I would say I call it a bad habit of inefficient breathing. So we really want to completely relax that area of the throat, and the very upper portion of the chest and the neck should remain relaxed. So it was already a lot to be aware of, and now even more to be aware of. But it will be worth it, I promise. Okay. So now we're still wanting the exhalations to be relaxed. So no forceful exhalations. And it may be that you find that challenging. Maybe you find that the exhalations really just almost are automatically forceful. Like you can't even not make them forceful. And this is, if you find that that's the case, well, then most people find that that's true. And I mean, in my experience personally, and then also in coaching people and in my own education, I've just encountered that this is a very common thing. So if you encounter that, don't dismay. So we'll get better, and today's technique is going to help with this quite significantly. Maybe not instantaneously, although to some degree instantaneous, but especially with persistent application, you should find that it just gets better and better, clearer and clearer. So just do your best. And now I'm going to suggest to you that you can use your hands, use your fingers, in particular your fingertips, to kind of feel around on your abdomen, particularly along the midline. We're going to focus primarily along the midline today. Well, primarily. But it will, the same technique can be used anywhere on the abdomen, but just to keep our focus, we'll be focusing primarily on the midline, meaning you can find the pubic bone, so you can just feel down, presumably if you have comfortable enough clothing on, at least you can feel to the pubic bone. If you don't know where that is, that would be down toward your genitalia. So the pelvis is a kind of a bowl, has kind of somewhat of a bowl shape. So there are two hemipelvi, I guess, pelvises that form the pelvis, and they have these two iliac crests that come up on either side. So those are very large and on the back side of the body. And then underneath your torso, the pelvis kind of wraps up and it forms this pubic bone. It's called pubic bone, but it's part of the pelvis. And you have many attachments of muscles to that pubic bone. So sometimes, for many of us, we have so much somatic, sensory motor amnesia and tension in that area that we can't even really feel the pubic bone, but you can just at least imagine that it's down there and see if you can feel something. And then you can just move your fingers up and just kind of gently but firmly press in and just move up slowly in that way. Just kind of press in and feel what you can feel, and then release, and then move the fingers up a little bit, maybe an inch or two, and do the same, and keep repeating that until you get up to the bottom of the sternum or the breastbone. Now, be somewhat gentle when you get up near to the breastbone, because even though you're very durably made and you're not going to hurt yourself, nonetheless, it's a somewhat sensitive area right there at the base of the sternum. There's a piece of cartilage called the xiphoid process, and you want to be, at least as you're familiarizing yourself with your own body, you want to be gentle and don't be overly aggressive. But you want to see what you can feel as you're doing this. So just take a moment to do that. And don't be shy. It's your own body. You get to touch yourself in this way. And what you're wanting to notice is, well, first of all, just anything that you notice is a good thing because you're familiarizing yourself with your own body. And another thing, though, that you want to notice is, particularly, do you find any tenderness? Do you find any tension, hard lumps or knots, or maybe bits of like rope that seem like iron cables strung tightly or something? Sometimes you find these things in there, and you just want to see what's there, because when we familiarize ourselves with our own bodies in this way, then we're starting to learn what we've assumed. Well, first of all, we didn't have the awareness, and then second of all, what we were at least unconsciously assuming was acceptable or um, normal or unavoidable. And what I want to propose to you is that this whole area could be very soft, yielding, comfortable, that it could be pleasant or at least neutral to the touch. So an absence of tenderness or soreness, certainly an absence of the hardness and so forth that we often will find in there. So then the question is, well, how can we go from where we are to this theoretical possibility? And that's what we're going to be doing. So now, if you don't find any of the tenderness or hardness or tension, and you can clearly distinguish the pubic bone and the base of the ribs, and if you can really clearly feel the whole shape of the pelvis with your hands, then I'm surprised you're here at all, because you'd be out loving every moment of your life. So I hope I'm speaking to the right audience, and that you found some things in there that maybe are not so comfortable, not so pleasant, not maybe not so soft and yielding, but rather like a, a dark and and you know a scary place, maybe a little bit. So we're gonna uh, shine some light there. We're going to uh, bring some life there. So remember, throughout this, you can and should relax completely and be as comfortable as possible, so that you're free, and it's in fact your responsibility to be good to yourself throughout. So if at any point you find that it's too intensive for you, then just know you're in charge. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but we're back. Okay, so the anticipation must just be incredible. So what we're going to do now is um, when you exhale, you're going to allow for the you're gonna keep your fingers on the lower portion of the abdomen, below, between the belly button and the pubic bone. So wherever, somewhere in that area that's comfortable for you. And as you exhale, you're going to keep this all as soft as you can, and you're going to just gently press in with your fingers, and you're going to probably find, unless your pelvis is already um, in a very neutral position, you're probably going to find that your pelvis will naturally want to roll a little bit, and to accommodate both the exhalation and the gentle pushing of the fingers. So just allow that. So just let this be a coordinated thing. So you're inhaling and you're exhaling, and you're inhaling and exhaling. And each time you exhale, you're going to just gently but firmly press down with your fingers. Try to let everything be as relaxed as possible, including your arms and hands, so that you're not straining. And you're just finding, hopefully, that you can let the pelvis come into a more neutral position, and that it's like you're forming a connection between your fingers, like the front of your abdomen, all the way to the spine and into the surface that you're lying on, so that you can really start to feel that connection, and you can start to notice that you can release more in this area, both in the lower back and in the abdomen. So do that a few more times. And then we're going to continue with that, but we're going to add something, which is on the uh, on the inhalations. You're going to gently uh, roll the pelvis down so that the lower back slightly arches. And as you do, you're not going to be pressing with the fingers here. You're going to just let the fingers rest on the front of the abdomen there, the lower abdomen. And you're going to consciously allow for the lower abdomen to release even more. So open to accommodate this gentle movement of the arching of the lower back, which slightly rolls the pelvis. So the front of the abdomen has to slightly open and expand to accommodate this. And so you're just forming that connection. So then as you exhale, you're gently pressing down with the fingers, letting everything be soft and yielding, and you're letting the pelvis come into that neutral position so that you can really feel the fingers making that connection through the front of the abdomen all the way down to the spine and into the surface that you're on, so that you can feel the lower back just coming into deeper contact with the surface you're on without any tension in the front of the abdomen. So you're not tensing up on the front of the abdomen to try and do anything. You're releasing completely. So you're going to just do that several times. So as you inhale, you gently are going to arch the lower back, roll the pelvis. Don't strain. Don't make it some kind of exaggerated movement. Let it be very comfortable and pleasurable. Feel the entire movement. Feel the pelvis rolling. Feel that contact. Feel the connection that you're making in your, neurologically with the front of the lower abdomen, so that you can soften and open that even more. And then as you exhale, you're releasing and you're gently pressing down with your fingers into the lower abdomen and letting everything soften and release down toward the surface that you're on. So you're feeling, it's almost as if you were able to touch the spine with your fingers. Not necessarily really, but you start to notice that you can, without force, without strain, you should start to notice that your fingers can start to sink in a little bit more. Okay, make sure that you're letting the face be relaxed. The tongue should be resting in the lower jaw. The eyes should be looking down as if you're gazing into the lower abdomen. So like be as if you were looking internally at that point where your fingers are pressing into the interior of the lower abdomen. Okay, so now for many people, so remember now, why don't we just take a moment? That's because a lot. So let's take a moment to you can let everything just come to rest, and as much as is comfortable for you. And then, so you can release the Jalandhara Bandha. You can, let everything come to as much of a rest as you would like, and just do a few rounds of the Buteyko style reduced breathing. And when you're ready, then again, we're going to do the same thing that we just were doing. So you want to, again, engage the Jalandhara Bandha, and you're going to allow for the inhalations to be more active. So there might be, the chest is going to expand more with this, and then more than in the Buteyko style breathing. Exhalations are still relaxed, non-forced. Make sure the tongue is relaxed in the lower jaw. Make sure that the eyes are looking down as if you were staring interiorly to that point. in the lower abdomen, and you're going to have your fingers there on the lower abdomen, and we're going to do a few more rounds, just as we did a moment ago. So when you inhale, you're going to slightly arch the lower back and roll the pelvis, and you're going to release even more the front side of the lower abdomen. And then when you exhale, making sure not to force the exhalation, you're going to release the pelvis and lower back, and you're going to press gently into the lower abdomen to help to reinforce that, so that the lower abdomen is completely relaxed and becomes more and more soft and pliable and yielding to your fingers. And don't hesitate, by the way, to move the fingers around to slightly different positions. Don't have to be in the same position each time. In fact, I would encourage you to try slightly different positions. And furthermore, another thing that I will suggest that you can try is that the right and left hands don't have to be side by side. You can stagger them so that one hand is slightly higher than the other. So, for example, you could have one hand on the midline just below the belly button, and the other one on the midline just above the pubic bone. And you could see what that is like, because that can give you very different feedback than if you have them side by side. So this is the basic, we've kind of given you the basic technique, but hopefully you can start to see that then there's an enormous number of variations that can be done just with what I've given you so far, because the hand placement can give very, very different feedback depending on where the hands are placed. And so that can help you to discover things that you would not otherwise discover. So this is already, just as it is, I hope you're seeing how very useful this can be. But we can take it another step further by using the Udiana Kriya. So if you are uncomfortable doing the Udiana Kriya, then don't, because only do it, only introduce it if and when you're comfortable doing so. So don't feel that you must. You can still get very good results without it. And in that case, you just continue as you have been. But for those who are comfortable with the Udiana Kriya, we can augment this, and I'll walk you through that now. So it's a very similar process, but it's going to few minor changes because we're introducing the Udiana Kriya. So we're going to obviously introduce the Udiana Kriya at the bottom of the exhalation. So as a reminder, that means that you still exhale in the usual way. For our purposes here. Now, I will say there are some variations in which Udiana Kriya is done where we use a forced exhalation, but that's not what we're doing here. So we're just allowing the same relaxed exhalation, and then at the end of that natural relaxed exhalation, you're going to close the throat, and you're going to mimic an inhalation, but without taking in air. So this causes, you'll notice, the ribs to flare just like you were taking an inhalation, but because you're not inhaling, what happens instead is that there's a kind of vacuum created, and the abdomen is pulled in and up by this vacuum. So don't hold that for longer than is comfortable for you, but you just, that's the basic thing. Okay. So when you're able to do the Udiana Kriya along with this technique, then I'm going to give, it depends on how long you can hold the Kriya. So if you can only hold the Kriya for a second or 2 seconds, then you'll just do that much. And so what you'll basically, to integrate the Udiana Kriya, if you can only hold it for a second or 2 seconds, then you'll do exactly as you've been doing, except you introduce the Udiana Kriya and you want to, and in that moment, because you've got the fingers pressed in to the lower abdomen with the Udiana Kriya engaged, you can feel into there even more, and you want to make the neural connection so that you can consciously release and soften even more. So whatever residual tension or tenderness or whatever you find there, you can release even further, because this Udiana Kriya gives you that, just that extra bit of whatever you want to call it, I don't know, that extra bit of information that allows you to do so. So if you are able, now I don't know how many people are able to do so, but if you're able to comfortably maintain the Udiana Kriya for long enough, which is probably going to require, I don't know, more than 2 seconds. I don't know how many seconds minimum, but it will require more than 2 seconds. You'll find out. Then I'll walk you through a variation on this that can, in my experience, significantly enhance the effects. So I have to kind of think through it for myself to make sure I'm giving you the right instructions. So the way in which we sequence or coordinate the movement of the pelvis and lower back with the breath and the Udiana Kriya changes slightly here. So what you're going to do is I'll talk you through it, and you can just relax and do the Buteyko style breathing for a moment while I'm talking you through it. And then for those who would like to do it, you can do it once you have an understanding of it. So, and when I explain it to you, it should hopefully make sense to you conceptually so that you'll be able to make sense of it. So the idea here is that when you do the engage the Udiana Kriya, during that retention, you're going to roll the pelvis and arch the lower back. Now, what this does, if you think about it for a moment, is that's going to cause that will lengthen the front side of the body. So the back side of the body shortens, contracts, and the front side of the body has to lengthen in order to accommodate the movement. So what that means is that any tension that's held in the front side of the body is going to be further exposed during this movement. So you're at this moment because you've gently pressed into the lower abdomen, so the pelvis has come to a neutral position. The lower spine is gently relaxed into the surface that you're lying on, and everything on the front side of the body is, as much as possible, able to relax in this position. While then you further, by engaging the Udiana Kriya, allow for even more awareness and softening here. And then, in addition, while that is engaged, you're going to arch the lower back, roll the pelvis. I give that like it's 2 instructions. It's the same movement, but just understood 2 different ways. And that's going to cause the front side of the body, the lower abdomen in particular here, to have to lengthen so that you'll become even more aware of any residual tension that's held there, which means then you have to consciously choose to soften it. So then what you're going to do is you're going to, once you've done that, you're going to stay in that position, and then you're going to release the Kriya, which is important because if you don't release the Kriya before you inhale, it's an uncomfortable thing. So you want to release the Kriya consciously and slowly, and then you're going to inhale while you're already in that posture. Then, once you've inhaled, then you'll exhale. And so from that point, it's the same. You exhale and you press gently down, release, and then you engage the Udiana Kriya. While that's maintained, you arch the lower back and then release the Kriya. Inhale while the lower back is arched, still maintaining awareness there of the lower abdomen and consciously softening it even more. And then as you exhale, same thing as before, you gently press down with the fingers and soften and release into the neutral position. So if you would like to try that, if you feel like that might be something possible for you, then you can go ahead and give that a try. And if not, then you can not. So my goal for today is that you can really just introduce the technique, and then hopefully you'll have enough information that you can begin to apply it, so and practice it and get good results with it. So if you're trying that out, you can do that a few times, and then when you're ready, when you've done that a few times, then you can come to a resting position. And I'm going to give you a few more tips because we really just covered the basics here. And as I hinted at earlier, there's an enormous amount of potential with this. So we focused with finger placement on the lower abdomen. I just want to give you a few more tips for how you can get some good results with other variations of hand placements. So one is that you can place your offset your hands from the midline to right and left and move them down to the right and left of the sides of the pubic bone. And you'll find probably that there's you have a lot of stuff there that you're not really sure what that is, what's bone, what's muscle, what should be tight and what shouldn't be tight, and why it's all like that. And so you can repeat the same process with your fingers there, and that can be very satisfying and give some good results. Another variation that can be really useful is fingers around the belly button, the navel. You might find, for example, pressing into the navel downward with the thumb of one hand and slightly pulling upward with the fingers of the other hand can be can provide some useful feedback that can give you some good results. Additionally, I've also found that the near to the xiphoid process on either side of the lower ribs. So placing, the right fingers on the, you want to find you could just find the breastbone and slide the fingers down until it's not clearly bone anymore, and then slightly off to the right and left. And you should find there's the lower ribs there, and they continue to curve down and out to the sides. And you want to probably find you're gonna want to, for this variation, keep your fingers within a, say, 2 to maybe 3 inch distance from the midline on those lower ribs. And the same basic thing here. So same basic process, but with the fingers placed slightly differently. And you're gonna, and instead of just pressing down, you might press down or in and slightly out to the sides at the same time. And that can give some good results. As I mentioned earlier, be gentle always, but particularly in this area, because this can be a very sensitive spot, and you don't want to be overly aggressive ever with yourself, but especially in this area. So just don't hurt yourself. But as I also mentioned earlier, you're not going to hurt yourself, but just have that awareness. I guess that's my version of a disclaimer. And you don't have to limit yourself to these variations, but these are some variations that I'm suggesting to you that I think you will find are helpful. So that's really kind of it for today. I would recommend that you try this out daily. I will, I guess, give a few cautions. One is, it can give some very, very significant release of some often very long held patterns of tension in the abdomen. And what goes along with that, like this is Hannah's red light reflex, and this is a posture of apprehension, fear, anxiety, worry. And so that energy is kind of locked up here, and releasing it is wonderful, liberating, excellent, and in all good ways. The only thing to be aware of is it can be a lot of energy, and so don't be overly aggressive. Don't overdo it. It's kind of build up slowly. So I would say, we took a lot of time here to introduce the technique, but now that you kind of have some familiarity with the technique, you'll probably find that you'll be able to put it into practice and get right into it relatively quickly. You won't need an hour to do so. You can start doing it within a minute. And so I would recommend, if you're going to really do it in a very focused way, you probably want to limit it to like 10, maybe 15 minutes at a time. Don't go, if you find yourself gasping for air, you pushed it too far. Don't do that. That's part of the process. We're all going to kind of find where the edges are. So it's not like you failed badly, but just learn from it and don't push so far. And then I would say, to start, just do it once a day. Once you are comfortable and confident with it, and you find that, if you're finding that it's all, energetically good, and you're not feeling like too much, then you could do it twice a day. That I think should be sufficient. Um, and let me know. I look forward to hearing your results and feedback on it. And if you have any doubts, questions, concerns, or anything else, do let me know that as well, because I want you to have a good experience and I want to be helpful to you. So that's it for now. And I do really mean that. Please give me, I would love to hear your results with it, because I think this is I think it's one of, if not the most powerful techniques that I have encountered. So I would really like to know your experiences. And I think that would also be helpful in developing the technique so that it can be even more effective for everybody. So thank you as always for joining me. I hope that this has been very helpful to you, and blessings to you all. Bye for now.